Welcome to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Goal podcast, your destination for all things lacrosse. I'm your host, Kyle Devitt. Jack Piatelli is in studio once again. Jack, how we doing?
Doing very, very well. Traffic's really bad in Boston these days, though. It's tough to get in here. But fortunately for you, you don't have to make that commute anymore. And but other than that, things are good. And I hear you're building a cabin. So any listeners who want to go up to Hopkinton, New Hampshire, need a place to stay, they'll have a place to stay in your new cabin. It's going to be built in a year. If anybody wants Kyle's email or phone number, I could pass it along. He's only going to be charging $1,500 a week to rent the place during the summer.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Thanks for not saying exactly where it is, and that's why I didn't tell you what town it's actually in. So appreciate that. But yeah, we got a great guest in studio, a legend of Massachusetts lacrosse, and one of your guys, Bussy Adam. How's it going, Bussy?
Good. How are you?
We're getting by, but I think one of the things that I really want to ask you about right off the bat, I knew him a little bit covering when his last coaching job was at Plymouth State, but you played for Gordy Webb at
Right.
UMass Boston. Give me your best Gordy Webb story.
Well, there were a lot of them. A patient man. I mean, I went to Boston State back in 1976. It was my freshman year, and he just had a bunch of local misfits and put us all together and won some championships. He's like I said, he's a patient man. He had these 17-year-old kids who came to Boston State. He went out and watched them play, recruited them, and a lot of kids who very good lacrosse players, but didn't have a home after high school. And he formulated this team of a lot of inner city kids, tough athletic kids, and some skilled players from the suburbs. And we went on to be a pretty successful program.
Unfortunately, I bring it up because he recently passed. But I had the pleasure of interviewing him in his last job at Plymouth State, and I've never interviewed someone that was so gracious with their time. Right? Like usually it's like, hey, here's a block that I have free that we can talk, and I got to do something else. I used to coach at Plymouth State, and I told him that, and he's like, oh, well, you know where the office is. You can just hang out and do whatever you need for as long as you need. That's not something that I get a lot. So I like to talk to people that worked with him, played for him, and just kind of show appreciation for a guy like that in the sport of lacrosse. And he's done so much, and we're just like spreading his message.
Yeah, he was a great ambassador of the game. He not only did a great job with the teams that he coached, Boston State, Plymouth State, before that, UMass Boston. He coached, I think, the professional teams, different levels, but he always brought that drive and enthusiasm. Always wanted you to learn the game, not just the basic fundamentals of the game, but also he wanted to develop your IQ so you had a full understanding of the full game. And he was just a great guy. I didn't realize how really valuable of a coach he was for me, and what I learned from him through the 4 years that I played with him until I started coaching myself and started to implement a lot of things that I had learned, the 4 years that I was with him. And I had the privilege after, and we would butt heads for at least 3 of those 4 years. But after I had graduated, he invited me to come and do a clinic with him at LaSalle College back. This is the early 80s. And after that, we just kind of bonded and formed a friendship, not just coach-player, but coach-coach. And, I was constantly giving him calls and asking for his advice and his opinion on different things throughout my coaching career.
Bussy, you've been involved in lacrosse your entire life. It's been very good to you and your two sons. But back in the 70s, Massachusetts, lacrosse wasn't obviously what it is today in terms of the participation, the number of programs that are available, whether it's high school or college. How did you get your start? I know you grew up in Newton, but when did you get your start? How did you get your start? I know you were a multi-sport athlete. Talk a little bit about, what lacrosse was like back in the 70s and how you got started.
Well, I didn't start lacrosse until I was a sophomore in high school. And it was just by chance dating a girl whose sister dated the captain of the lacrosse team, and bought my first PL 66. It was $22. I had to borrow the money from my parents. My parents thought it was a girl's sport, wondering what the heck I was doing. But, I just fell in love with the game. I was a basketball, soccer player. So I think there are a lot of similarities. So, I took that stick with me everywhere I go, and I hit the wall up at Franklin Elementary School right by my house, and developed my stick skills just on my own, and just fell, passionately in love with the game. And lucky enough to, upon graduation from high school, I wasn't sure where I wanted to go, where I wanted to pursue a degree, and like I said, Gordy Webb had recruited me to play at Boston State. But, and then I played for 4 years and came back in 1980 and started to coach with my head coach from Newton North, Tom DePita, coached with him for a year, and then coached with the couple assistant coaches, and then took over the job in 1987. So I was a head coach from 87 to 2018. So many years of, coaching at the high school, running camps, clinics, indoor leagues in the city of Newton, helping develop their youth program. So lacrosse has been pretty good to me. But, back then in the 80s, there was 15 teams that were playing. We had to go out and play private schools, prep schools. Now there's, hundreds of teams.
Now, as we get older, people obviously know who you are and what a great coach you are and what a great ambassador you are for the game. But a lot of people don't know about your playing career. You were an All-American in high school, and you were an All-American in college. And for some,
not at Boston State.
Oh,
no.
you weren't All-American,
No.
but
playing the East, North South.
you're in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Boston State Hall of Fame. You're in the Eastern Mass Hall of Fame. You were quite a player. My point is, you were a very good player, especially for a guy that just picked up a stick sophomore year. Might be difficult to be able to do that today.
Yeah. Kids nowadays have so many more opportunities, and my kids started playing as soon as they could walk, had a stick in their hand. That's quite an advantage. And on the programs like you run, it gives kids opportunities to play during the off season. So kids have their stick in their hands consistently throughout the year.
I know you're involved in the whole Newton community, not just Newton North, because one of my really good friends, he's a lawyer now. He would tell me stories about you, even though he went to Newton South. He would be like, I wish I went to Newton North so I could play for Bussy. He's like, he's a legend. He's just like, all the kids loved him. And I was, I would always pester him. Like, I didn't know who you were. This was like 15, 20 years ago. I'm from New Hampshire. I don't have as much background as I have now, but he would just be like, have you met Bussy yet? All the time. Cause he knew I was working in lacrosse, I was coaching, and I'd be like, no, I don't know. And then to find out you're connected to Jack was very cool. And to have you on and to talk to you is actually pretty cool for me. Cause like in my mind, you're built to be this like Titan of Newton. Right. And I think that kind of comes with 39 years of coaching, right? Like, and being involved with countless numbers of players. I'm only coaching high school for 3 years, and I feel like I have like a lot of weddings to go to eventually, like how was that experience for you, and how much did you change from year 1 to year 10 to year 20 to kind of towards the end?
That's a good question. Along with coaching for, 40 plus years between youth while I was in college and then taking over the job, I was also the youth officer in the city. So I had a tremendous amount of contact with kids, sometimes at their very worst behavior. And then I had the opportunity to coach them at camps and clinics and winter leagues, and then, of course, during the 3-month season. So I came in contact with hundreds, if not thousands, of kids over the career. And, there's not too many places that I'll go now coaching with Piatelli Lacrosse. Well, I'll bump into some of those former players who kids now play, whose kids play. It reminds you how old we really are. But Yeah, it's just it was a phenomenal career, not just to have the opportunity to do something you love for so many years and continue to do it, at my age now, but to keep reliving it as you walk through life and you bump into these kids that you had an impact on their lives and help them develop the passion when they pass it on to their kids. So it's a great feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your, let's say, someone wants to do that, listening to this podcast, have that longevity in coaching. What do you think is your, not secret, but what do you think is the most important thing to be able to do that, to have that be a possibility for you?
I don't, well, you have to have a passion for the game, because you're not going to win every game. You're not going to like every kid that you coach, but you're going to have to approach it every day with that same enthusiasm, or you shouldn't be coaching. For me, it was a challenge every day. It was a challenge to come to practice and try to get through, the 20, 25 kids that I had on the team. Nowadays, people say kids are different. I don't think kids are different. I think parents are different. Their expectations different, especially nowadays. Parents invest so much money into their kids' development, and they kind of lose sight that it all comes down to athletic ability and skill and commitment and sacrifice. And sometimes kids nowadays don't want to put that time or effort into it. But years ago, it was the same thing in terms of kids. They needed to commit themselves and sacrifice, but parents weren't paying a lot of money for their kids to play. So I think they had a different relationship with coaches. Now I think that's changed. So advice to young guys is that you have to have a passion, stick with it. If you're not coming to practice enthused and excited about teaching kids how to play, maybe you need to move on to a different profession, because parents are always going to be there. They're always going to be demanding, especially if they invest in a lot of money into their kids' development. They're not going to see it the same way that we do as coaches.
Bussy, you and I have talked about this, and you brought it up, but when I was young, one of six, youngest of six, and talking about your parents, they weren't nearly involved in our sports. I remember just getting rides to my games and rides to practices. My parents very rarely went to any of the games, very rarely went to practices. They just knew I had baseball, or I had football practice. And because my parents were more focused on putting food on the table and working on the weekends with six kids. So never talked to any of the coaches. In many cases, didn't even know who the coaches were, with six kids. And now parents don't even know. Not only do they know who the coaches are, they've got their email address, they've got their cell phone phone number, they've got their Instagram information, Facebook information. And so there's so many different angles to get in touch with the coaches. And a number of parents won't pick up the phone and have a conversation with the coaches, but they're happy to send them an email and tell them, they're not a very good coach. But things have changed that way, unfortunately. Parents need to take a step back. And the other problem is a lot of parents want it more than the kid. You and I, we love the game. We started playing, like Kyle, fell in love with it. We wanted to get better. It was just so much fun. And I think there was a lot of advantages not having our parents involved. I would have liked my parents to go to more games, but with six kids, they just weren't able to. And I remember my father would work construction all week, and then on the weekends he had all these side jobs. So things have changed a lot. It's great that more kids are playing, but I agree with you. Parents need to, enjoy watching your kids play the game that they love, because it goes by very quickly.
Yeah, it certainly does. I was lucky because I had a great supportive group of parents throughout my career. I mean, towards the end, things got a little dicey, but still, I loved coaching. I love the kids. You have a few difficult parents. You're not going to make that destroy your career or make you bitter. But I was lucky for the most part of the 39 years. I had some wonderful supportive parents. But they were paying $100 user fee for their kid to play, and so things have changed. I think, coaches have to develop some skills in dealing with those parents because they're here to stay. And advice to parents is if you think you have the need to call or to write a scathing email about a coach, maybe your kid shouldn't be playing lacrosse or playing for that particular coach. I always, if I have a difficult parent, I always meet with the kid and then meet with the parent. And usually you can sort it out because the kid has a different perspective in terms of where he is in the depth chart. I mean, he's got not only a couple of coaches that are critics, but he's got his own teammates that he has to deal with. And sometimes parents fail to see that.
And the players at the practicing every day. So he sees the competition. He knows what he's up against, where the parents aren't at practice every single day. They don't know, what he's up against. He might be the fifth attackman, the fourth attackman. They want to know why. Well, there are 3 or 4 guys better, and these are the reasons why. They're battling out every single day at practice, and he's coming up 4 and 5 every single time.
Yeah. And, how are you determining your kid's level of play? I mean, there's an attitudinal an effort that's being observed every day at practice. And they don't see those types of things. And, lacrosse is a team sport, and it's not only just about the goals and the assist and, and the skill and the athleticism, it's about the attitude too. And how else are you contributing to the success of your team?
Yeah. There's only 10 spots on the field at once, if you're a midi, you'll probably see the field eventually. It's a lot of positional specialization. Right. And I think that's not something that was affecting playing time as much back in the day when, you had a guy that took faceoffs, you had a guy that played man down, you had a guy that played the man up, and it's the same guy, right?
Yeah.
Like you kind of don't see that anymore. You've been there for the evolution of that and seen that play out in different ways, from the specialty coaching to club teams, right?
Yep.
How much has changed in your estimation of how kids are being developed?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Well, you work for a club team now. I know it's loaded, but I have to ask it.
In terms of the different specialized positions now, I think that's a good thing because, that big, strong, and I'm talking about high school lacrosse, the big, strong, athletic kid who has no skills, but he plays football, he wrestles. That's the kid I want to recruit to teach him some skills on face-offs, because he's going to be that focal. He's going to win a face-off and get off the field, and that's going to be his role. And I want him to take pride in it because that's an important role. You may have another kid who can run up and down the field, but he doesn't handle the stick that well, but he can stay with anybody. You teach him how to stay on the hips and hands, and you got a long pole midi or a shorty that plays just strictly defense, and he comes off the field. So you have more opportunity to play those kids who are less developed in the skills of lacrosse, but you're actually using their athletic ability to help improve your team. So I think that's a good thing. In terms of club lacrosse, we're always looking for great face-off guys because we have the best offensive team in a particular grade. But if you don't have somebody that can win the face-off, you're going to struggle to win that game. So we go out and we look for a particular kid, a specific kid that plays that takes face-offs. So I think it's a good thing. In terms of parents or anybody else has to understand that there's a role for everybody. But you just have to develop into that role and understand that particular position.
Hey, it's Bobby Moran, Director of Athletics at Thayer Academy. You know what? Experience matters, and Thayer Academy's professional coaching staff understands how to work with each student athlete to help them succeed. Our coaches and faculty are committed to ensuring both 5th to 12th graders feel known, connected, and prepared. This is Thayer's secret sauce, nurturing each student to reach their full potential. Here, success is truly a team sport. Are you ready for your child to take the next step? See what Thayer has to offer at thayer.org. That's THAYER.org.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students could earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
People just look at lacrosse now in high school as this is a platform to help me get into college, right? Which is fine, but not everyone that plays on a high school lacrosse team is playing in college, right? Like it's if you're playing D3, I think it's like 8.3% of kids that play high school play on a D3 team, and then it's like 3% for D2 and 2% for D1. So there's a lot of kids that aren't playing college lacrosse, and the lessons that you teach them don't really have anything to do with that, right? And I think that's kind of one of the things that people miss about coaching high school in particular. Public school, prep school, whatever. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to classify it, but that's one of the things that I think makes good coaches good and have them stay at that level. Is that something you agree with, or do you have a different approach?
Yeah, I mean, in high school, you get a 16, 18 game schedule, and you're going to put, the best 23, 25 kids on your team, and to help you find success. And hopefully that's to win as many games as you can. Some of those kids are there for the short time. They just want to play. They want to have fun. They're there for different reasons. I think that's changed a little over the years. I think the high school lacrosse player now is a little bit more serious because they're investing time during the off season, but you still have those big, strong, athletic kids who just want to be with their buddies and have fun. And, they may be an accomplished, multi-sport athlete, but they're unskilled in lacrosse. But they can help you in high school. Maybe their size, or they can contribute in so many different athletic ways. And then after high school, their career is over. I mean, I've coached one of my best players was a high school All-American and recruited pretty heavily. And he decided at the end of high school that he didn't want to invest the time into playing. He not that he lost the passion for it, but it just wasn't what he wanted to do for the next 4 years. And I commend a 17-year-old kid who can find so much success in high school and then walk away from the sport because it's just that he can't put the level of commitment or effort into to continue to develop his game. It wouldn't be fair to that particular college coach or to that program.
Were you talking about your son, Hunter?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Hunter was an outstanding lefty attackman, one of the most skilled attackmen I've watched play, one of the most tenacious, tough, high IQ, got a scholarship to play at Merrimack and decided that he didn't want to play anymore. And I have a lot of respect for him as well for making that decision. But, Hunter could have played anywhere. He could have played anywhere. He was that good. And as a father, I'm sure it was difficult for you, but after talking with him, and we've had this conversation, he said, it's okay, respect his decision because he wasn't willing to put that time in.
Yeah, no, and I learned a lot from that too, because, you coach hundreds and hundreds of kids over the course of your career. And sometimes we want that player to be better than they want, because it's above and beyond the athletic ability and the skills. It's the time, the commitment, and the passion. I mean, we're passionate guys. I mean, some of the things we do, we're 17 years old. But there are kids who don't have that same passion, and you got to respect the fact, just as long as they're giving you the effort, and this is in high school, they're giving you the effort, they're contributing, they're not a cancer on the team, they're bringing you up, they're improving you, helping you improve every day. But if their passion, once they lose that passion, it's like coaches. Once you lose the passion, you got to get out of the game. And so for me, in approaching kids, and it's not so much the summer kids, because those kids are committed. They're investing their time, their energy, their summer, their money, so they want to be there. But in high school, you got to work at keeping kids excited about the sport and teaching them up all of the time. But some of them will accept that and use it and develop, and other kids which is dissatisfied with where they're at, and that's high school sports.
And your other son was a multi-sport athlete, was recruited to play lacrosse, and actually was recruited to play football. Ended up playing 2 years at Tufts football team and had a great career on the lacrosse field at Tufts. So I've always said this to you, it's not easy to play two sports in college, especially football and lacrosse. He was a very dedicated student athlete, great student, and committed to his academics. So it's interesting, like as a parent, you have one son that had a great high school career. Now he's off down in Florida working, doing very well. And you've got another son who not only wanted to play lacrosse, but he wanted to play football in college.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think so. I think Kyle mentioned, when kids get older, what are some of the life lessons that they are learning? And it's about commitment and sacrifice. And, with my sons, they're committed to what they're doing now. They're working, they're making money, they're being productive. And lacrosse has kind of taken a back seat to that. But, for 21 years, 18 through high school, you've taught them how to commit themselves to something and to improve, always continue to improve, be a good teammate. And as long as they can carry those skills into their adult life and into their commitment to work, hopefully they're going to find success.
We'd be remiss to let you go without asking you about your state championships in the 90s. And I know one player in particular that kind of came out of that was Mike Battista, who went on to play with the Cannons. And I remember I mentioned earlier, my friend, he was like, hey, you have to ask him about Battista. So I'm asking you about Battista and the state championships all in one question. So what are your best memories from that time?
Well, I met Mike Battista. I was teaching a drug education program at elementary school, and I met him. This is early 90s. And he was in 95, 96 graduate, but we won 2 state championships with his group. And he was a big baseball player, and his dad was the commissioner for Newton Youth Baseball. And so, of course, every day I'd come into class, I was recruiting them, bringing equipment in, bringing T-shirts. And so long story short, now I got him hooked. He's coming to the camps and clinics. And his father approached me one day and said, hey, I see you're talking to my kid about lacrosse. He says, I don't want you doing that anymore, something to that sort. And he says, he's a baseball player. So I said, oh, okay. I thought he was a lacrosse player. So I talked to the baseball coach, Siciliano, whose son was the same age. And I got him to play lacrosse. So, and Siciliano, baseball coach, goes, you know what? They're good baseball players, but they're probably better lacrosse players. And the rest is history. We won 2 state championships with Siciliano and Todd McNamara and Mike Battista. But, Battista was just a tough athlete and so coachable and would do anything you asked him to do. He actually wanted to play attack. And we had him attack, but I thought he had more difficulty with his back, starting with the back to the cage. And I thought he was a north-south runner. You couldn't stop him. I mean, he was a bull. And we put him at midfield, and he was a tremendous midfielder. Went on to play at Loyola at midfield, but he created so much more when he was coming towards the cage because you had to stop him. And any kind of slides that he generated, he learned how to dump the ball, and his stats, his scoring went up, goals and assists, and we were a force those 2 years.
Yeah, I started my writing career with the MLL. I actually worked for the MLL for a little bit before I went to Inside Lacrosse, writing about pro lacrosse. And, I would write stuff about him, and I would go to the games at, I think it was at Cawley at the time in Lowell. And his mid-range shooting was something I didn't see before that. Like the next iteration is that 06 Virginia team, but him being able to get his shot off against anyone was like, it's burned into my brain. And the fact that he was a mass guy too kind of got burned into my brain because, again, one of my really good friends knew him and grew up with him. And burned it into my brain. So it's great. Like, I know that like having a player go to that next level, right? Like you have a role in that, but it's also like, it's almost an advertisement for the program, right? Not you as a coach necessarily, but sometimes. And I wonder, how do you look back and perceive your career in Newton North? Like, not your best moments, but overall body of work. Like, I'm sure you're proud, but the other thing too is that you're generating coaches out of that, right? Like, you've made kids, your coaching tree is insane, right?
Yeah, we won 3 state championships now when I was there, 93, 95, 96, and a whole host of championships, the Bay State League. And I remember all of them, but there were so many other moments through the course of 39 years, and the kids you come in contact, and, it's just an amazing career above and beyond the athletic aspect of coaching. And to see kids go on and get jobs and find success and start businesses, and then you see them and they tell you, they remind you of an event or a situation that happened during the course of the season, and then you remember that it was so significant for them. But to me, it was just showing up for practice one day, having a conversation with a kid. So you have those opportunities when you're in young kids' lives. You don't even know the kind of impact that you're having on kids. So that's why it's so joyful for me to bump into these kids at different parts of my life now, and to hear those stories, and it makes it that much more rewarding above the wins and the losses.
I think kids, when they get into coaching afterwards, right, you maybe don't realize that, I mean, I think now it's a little more immediate. You see the impact on the kids because my kids put stuff that I say on social media as like captions to them playing lacrosse. And I'm like, I did say that, but I don't really want you to know that I don't want everyone to know I said that, right? Like, it's a motivational thing, right? And they do like little quotes and things like that. So you can kind of see it a little more immediately, that kind of effect that you have on them. And then to see it over a longer part of your career has to be super rewarding, like you're saying. So I'm actually like, I'm looking forward to that. I think that's kind of one of the great things about coaching, that if you don't realize how much you're impacting the kids unless, you're in it for a very long time, and then you see it, and it's got to be like the most rewarding thing. Right?
Well, you've got 36 more years to go, right? You've only had 3 years of high school. Bussy had 39. So you have 36 years to go, and then you can look back and say, geez, did I make a good influence on any of these players? And I hope to live that long.
But guess what?
What?
I'm a third of the way there with championships.
There you go. That's right. You've got one.
That's right.
Bussy, you were a very good offensive player, but today people know you as the guru of defense. What is it about defense that you have a passion about, and talk about your philosophy on defense?
Well, it's interesting because when I started to play, I was one of the smaller athletes on my team, and I came from a basketball and a soccer background. I wasn't very skilled in either one of them. So I had to rely on just being an athlete and more so defense. But then I picked up a stick and, practiced and committed to my stick skills. And so now I developed pretty quickly as an offensive player, a skilled offensive player. So, but when I played my first couple of years, I was horrible on defense. But looking back, it was because I was never taught. I was expected to score goals and to generate offense. And because of between my athletic ability and my skills, I became a more successful offensive player. And I was I was a liability on defense. And it wasn't until I went to a camp, and I don't know if it was my first year of college, and it was a defensive coach from Bowdoin. It was a college kid who took me aside, and he goes, "You are horrible in defense." So long story short, he taught me some positional. The foundation of defense was your position, where you put your body. He goes, "You're physically able to do this." And in a very short period of time, I started applying my basketball skills and my soccer skills to lacrosse. And at Boston State, I actually played man up and I played man down. And it was like, how the heck? Because I understood the concepts of defense. I just wasn't a very good one-on-one player. I was all over the place. I was chasing the ball, over playing. And so when I was taught some fundamental defensive skills, I became a decent defensive player. And through my first few years of high school, many years of high school, I enjoyed the offensive area of the field. And it was easy to get defensive coaches because they're more reactive. You could bring all those grunts on your team and develop. But there was a lot more strategy involved in offense. But then over the years, I'm saying, you know what? You can't be a good offensive player unless you understand defense. And that I found that more difficult to teach offensive players because we'd be doing an offensive strategy drill, and then I'd stop to talk the defense, and the offense wouldn't listen. And I said, if you would listen to what I'm teaching the defense, you'd be able to take advantage. This be a frustrating practice. And so then I got more and more involved in defense because now I said, this is challenging our offensive players to become better offensive players. Let me spend more time in the defensive end of the field. So, so for me, it was just a normal transition. And I enjoy it. We spend so much time as coaches teaching offensive strategies because you have to score goals to win. But if you don't stop the other team from scoring one more goal, you lost the game. And I think defensively, it's a hard job. And I think you not only have to have a lot of attributes. You got to be physically fit. You have to have some endurance. You have to have speed. You have to have quick feet. You got to be tough. You got to have an IQ to understand what the offense is doing. So you have to really understand the offensive end of the field. But then also, if you get the ball on the ground, you got to be able to pick it up and play offense. A lot of offensive players don't have to think about all those things. They attack, they lose the ball, they sit and they wait for the defense to do their job. They get the ball back and they're thinking about offensive strategy. Some of them don't understand what the defense is doing to stop them. So that's why for me it was a kind of a normal transition into defense, and I love it. It's because there's things you can teach kids to actually, they don't have to become so defensive. Players, they don't have to be so reactive. They can be the initiators, putting the ball in the alley so you can promote a slide, or topside and turning them off of the island so that you can promote a slide. So if kids understand those strategies, then they have confidence in their teammates to be there to help them. So it's just, there's so much to teach and to learn about offense also, but I think even more so with defense.
Do you find that when you get players, you start teaching players in high school, that they're not taught defensive strategies enough when they get to you?
Yeah, I think, also it's the level of coaching. I mean, if they're getting good coaching, they'll come with a lot of information and you can just kind of fine tune it. But we're finding a lot of kids, big, strong, tough, athletic kids, and they're relying on their athletic abilities, and they haven't learned the other aspect of it, and that's the IQ of the game. You got kids who, I'm coaching 26, so these kids are young. They're in that transitional, sophomores, soon to be juniors, looking to be recruited, and physically they run up and down the field. Their endurance is great feet, they're tough, but they don't understand the strategies of the game. So they're going out there just trying to get the ball on the ground. And you'll ask kids, like, what are you looking at when you play defense? And they'll say, well, the ball. What are you trying to do? I'm trying to get the ball. No, you just got to prevent them. You look at a field, there's a field, the space in a field is 5,000 square feet, 50 by 100. But really, there's only 200 square feet of area that can really hurt you. That's where they can score. And, when you're riding and clearing, you got 10 on 10. When you're playing settled offense, you got 7 on 6. You got 7 guys. You got the goalie and you got your 6 field players. So that if you can physically, you got to, play between you and your man in the goal, and you got to keep them in certain areas. And the more you know about the kid, whether he's righty or lefty, what his tendencies are, what his strengths, his weaknesses are, that's going to help you. But you got 5-6 other players who are communicating, talking, and if you have faith in them, you can go out there and do a much better job. You're going to take some risks. You're going to play with, you're going to play and get them in a particular area so that if in fact you do get beat, you don't recover from what you're trying to do. You're going to have some help there. So trying to convince kids that don't just rely on your physical attributes, but there's a whole other part of this game that's more mental, that's going to help you become a better defensive player.
Coach, I feel like we could talk to you for another 2 hours, and
Hey,
we do have to cut it short.
Can I ask him
but-
one more question?
Yeah.
One quick. The only thing I wanted to bring this up because Bussy's been through some difficult times, and I just wanted you to talk about your experience. You were actually coaching for me, and I witnessed you fell to a knee, and you were having chest pains, and you finally got checked on, and you were checked on a couple of times. They sent you home, and then they determined that you had some blockage. You had to go in and have triple bypass surgery. You went through it once. You actually died on the operating table. They brought you back. You had to go back in for another triple bypass. And I know it's been a very difficult time for you, and it's great to be sitting next to you. I'm going to get a little emotional here, but just talk a little bit about your experience and what it was like. And I know many people are happy to have you back and have you healthy.
Yeah, it's been quite the past 8 months. December 5th, I suffered the first heart attack during the operation, as you said, and then I went back in June 8th and had a second open heart operation. But through it all, I'm here. I'm feeling great. Tough way to lose weight, but I'm healthy. I'm back coaching, and what really got me through it is the lacrosse community and all the friends, the kids, the parents, other coaches who, between the visits to my home, to the hospital, to rehab, I don't think I would have been able to get through it as well as I did without the support and the love from all my coaches and good friends. So thank you. But things are going well right now, so I'm on my way to a full recovery.
Well, I'm glad you're back on our payroll.
Yeah, me too.
You look great.
Thank you
for going through that. I gotta say, you're looking way better than the guy next to you. I'll tell you that right now.
Thank you. Appreciate it. He does.
It's not super hard, but
and he's got a few years on me too. I gotta catch up.
Well, we want to thank you for coming in, sharing some of your experiences, and it's been great. Good. Jack's been trying to get you on the podcast since we started.
I know,
and I see why. I get it. It's great.
Well, thank you. Appreciate all of the work you guys do.
Thanks, Bussy.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Goal podcast. For Jack Piatelli, I'm Kyle Devitt. We'll see you next time.